In this lecture, we're going to talk about our vision, our values, our mission, and how we use that to translate into business objective, our strategy, our policies, standards, and processes. What are our values? What is our vision? And what is our mission? From that, we then build the business objectives, and with those, we build our long and short-term plans. So most large organizations and corporations have a set of values. They have a vision and they have a mission statement. This is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it. It's also very common in small businesses to have some of these. So both for your job and for the certification, it's important to understand what they are, how they interact, how they drive our business plans, our policies, our standards, and procedures, because all of those are built from our values, our vision, and our mission. And not to make it more complicated than it is, over here on the right, you can see at the top of the pyramid is our values. That is what is most important to us. That is what we believe in, the principles we adhere to, our ethics, and what we stand for. Based on that, we then build a clearly defined vision for the entire organization for our future. What do we want to be? And then from that, we build the mission. Who are we doing this for? What is the purpose of our organization and the business that we run? Let's take an example. When I moved to Hawaii, I worked for a hospital. And the reason I decided to take that specific job at the hospital and none of the other job offers I had was because of their mission, the vision they had, their values. The other jobs would have been paying me significantly more. But the goal of the hospital was to make Hawaii a better place for everybody living there. I wanted to be part of that. So when you join a new organization, read up on their vision, their mission, and their values. In some places when you join, this is handed out. In other places, you need to go look for it. But I think when you get a job somewhere, it's important for you to know why are we doing what we are doing? What's the purpose of it all? With the hospital in Hawaii, it was to provide quality healthcare in perpetuity, meaning forever, for Native Hawaiians and the people of Hawaii. In other companies, it might just be to make money, which is perfectly fine. But since you're going to be spending so much of your time at this company, know what they stand for, know why are we doing this, but also know it because it's going to make you better at the job you do. If you understand the mission, the vision, and the values, you can incorporate them in your work. And if you look at the pyramid over here on the right, you can see at some point we hit IT and IT security. If we were in other parts of the business, of course it would be that area. And just see it as whatever step we're in now is built on the step just above it. If we look at the IT security strategy, that is built using the IT strategy, the business objectives, the business vision, the business mission, and our values. When we talked about the separation between governance and management, you can also see that here in our planning. It's very common that governance or senior leadership has a strategic plan. They set the vision, this is where we're going. We might renew it every so often, every year or every couple of years, but it is a long-term plan, 3, 5, 10, 20 years. Then management has a tactical plan, and that's what's going to move us from where we are now to where we want to be. That is our projects, our acquisitions, our hiring. And then where you are in the organization, in staff, here everything gets even more detailed. And these are all the little projects and all the little things, both that we do on a day-to-day basis and the projects. They're all the components of the plan just above it, and the plan just above it, the management ones, are components of the strategic plan. Now, let's talk a little bit more about standards, policies, procedures, and everything else that come with those. I think for the exam and probably also for your job, it's important to know where we use each of them and how they work together. So we build our policies, our standards, our processes based on the strategy, which is based on the objectives and so on. You understand that. But they are also influenced by the laws and regulations that we have to follow. Our policies are very high level. They're not specific and they will fall into 3 categories, either regulatory, advisory, or informational. Regulatory policies are the ones that our organization have to follow based on the industry that we are in. An example of that could be the hospitals that I worked in Hawaii or California. Here, we had to be HIPAA compliant. And HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. It's a federal law that organizations in healthcare in the US have to follow. It could also be the credit union I work for in California. Here, we have to be PCI DSS compliant, which is standards on how we deal with credit cards. So regulatory is something that is based on the laws and the regulations we have to follow. Next up, we have advisory policies. And those are the ones that outline the type of behavior and activities that are acceptable or not acceptable within our organization. In those types of policies, we may have something saying, this is what happens if you do or do not follow this policy. That could be the print policy we talked about already. Or it could be our acceptable use of internet policy or any of our employee policies. We want our staff to clearly understand what is allowed and what is not. And then finally, we have informational policies. Those are the ones that are just there to inform people. They could be policies that talk about our vision, our mission, our values. And as mentioned, all of these policies are very high level. They are not specific. For us in the IT world, that could mean they mention patches or updates or strong encryption, but they only mention that. They don't mention anything about how strong the encryption needs to be, just strong. So policies are non-specific, they are high level, they don't change that often, but they may change over time. If you remember back to when we talked about the plans, the policies are the governance piece, right? This is the same thing. Now, if there's a change in our procedures or standards, or maybe the laws that we need to adhere to, well, then we change the policies. But strong encryption means strong encryption. It does that now, it did it 5 years ago, and strong encryption will be strong encryption in 5 years. The type of encryption and how strong that is might change, but strong encryption is still strong encryption. Next up, we have standards, and they are just like the policies, mandatory, but they are in much more detail. This is where we would have the specific type of technology. That might say all laptops have to be Windows 10, 64-bit, and have at least 8 gigs of memory. All switches have to be Cisco, and they have to be above this version number. Then using those standards, we'll build our processes. And those are the practical, step-by-step, this is how we do it. And then finally, let's look at our procedures. They are mandatory, and they're very specific step-by-step guides. That could be the document we have outlining our server hardening. But with this, we also want to make sure there's as much automation as possible. Let's say the document we have for our server hardening has 60 things that need to be changed, ports that need to be blocked, default accounts that need to be removed, services that needs to be added, patches needs to be applied, and so on. If we have an automation for this, it is much more likely that all 60 things gets done. Whereas if Bob needs to remember all these 60 things, he might forget 1 or 2, leaving that server not hardened, or at least not hardened enough. And I think it is important to understand both for your work and your exam, if we can automate something, do it. While humans are amazing and awesome, it's much more likely that we don't miss something if we have automated that process and it's done for us. So to recap, our values are our ethics, our principles, and our beliefs. We use those to build our vision, which are our hopes and our visions, which then builds the mission, the motivation, and our purpose. And using all 3 of those, we then build our strategic objectives. We have different types of plans in an organization. The governance plans, the strategic plans are long-term plans. They're 3 to 5 years, but they are reviewed annually. From those, we build our management or tactical plans. They're normally 1-year plans. That's all our projects, acquisitions, hiring, and budgets. And then below that, we have the operational plans. That's the ones that the staff do. They are highly detailed and they're updated frequently. We talk about our policies. They are mandatory, they're high level, and they're non-specific. We have 3 different types. Regulatory, those are the ones based on laws. Advisory, those are the ones where we outline what is acceptable and what is not. And then we have informational, and they're really just there to inform people about things like our vision, our mission, our values. Using those policies, we build our standards. And here, we are in great detail. This is where we will have this operating system, this much memory, this type of switch. They're specific, and using those standards, we then build our procedures or our processes. They are also mandatory, and these are the low-level, step-by-step guides on how to do something. That could be the server hardening. I hope this has helped you get a better understanding of how our vision, mission, and values drive everything below it and how it all works together. And with that, we're done with this lecture. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.